Okay, welcome back. What I have here is 2-inch thick rough cut walnut. This is probably $500 worth of wood, maybe more. I can't remember, but I think I charged $4,500 for this table. And it seems fairly simple, but it was actually really complicated. I'm preparing all this wood. You see how thick it is ultimately. It gets down to probably lose at least 3/8 of an inch off of each one of those pieces after everything gets planed. Now I'm putting them through my 1911 crescent joiner. It's an 18-inch wide joiner. It's two blades, so if you hear it, it sounds like a helicopter taking off. Thinking about getting a helical cutting head for that, but it's very expensive. So I'm passing it through. I pass it through one broad side and one short side. So then I'll use the table saw to get them parallel from that one jointed short side, and then I'll use the surface planer to get the right thickness on the actual girth of the board. And this being a two-bladed, probably spinning too slow, it doesn't give me a good clean finish, but it gives me a flat finish, and that's more important than anything that I could do with any other tool in the shop at the moment. So by surface planing them, like I said, I get a choppy, stuttery finish, but it's flat. So when I pass it through the surface planer, I can then turn it back over and get a nice clean cut on the side that's came out with the double blades. It's a little choppy. And I didn't really show it too up close, just to avoid the trolls. And right here, each individual board is a various width. Each board when I bought it, the end was marked with the amount of board feet in each board. So it's a variety of widths and not all the same width. I got it from a supplier in upstate New York that doesn't typically carry this stuff, but I was there getting other plywood at the time and I saw it, so I was like, you know what, I need to finish this job. Now I'm surface planing it, and this is a DeWalt surface planer, which is a little underpowered. I stall it all the time. And it's the Home Depot buy. I actually didn't get it for free. I paid for it. I have two of them. And just in a rush, I had one, and then that one broke, and I needed another one, so I have two of them now. The belt burnt on the other one, so like I said, I actually paid for both of them. And now here I am just checking the wood, and what I did off camera was I made sure that I put them together where they fit the best. Even though I joint them and sanded them, or rather joint them and then pass them through the table saw, you still flip-flop them around. You want to make sure the grain's in the right orientation. Some people say alternate the grain. So when you're looking at the end of the boards, you want the cup up, the cup down, the cup up, the cup down. Talking about the end grain. I've seen that, and I don't know. I think it's just a lot of luck helps. And then also the steel that I'm going to ultimately put underneath it keeps it from cupping as a whole unit. Just using the biscuit joiner, of course. And what you don't see is me flipping from tight fit to loose fit. I think I just did it there. So one side gets the tight fit, the other side gets the loose fit. And the biscuits have three settings: exact fit, loose, and looser. And the reason they have that is because if you're off your marks a little bit, you want one side to be a little bit wider so that you could fudge it into the holes. What you do is you put a mark across your joint, and you use the biscuit from one side, and then you cut a biscuit hole from one side, you cut a biscuit hole from the other side. But if you have, say, 6 biscuits like that, and a couple of them are off, even by a couple of millimeters, it'll be hard to get your two pieces together. So one whole side is a loose fit, and one whole side is a tight fit. And I have this method where I have all the tight fitting sides face up, and then they just flop down to my right in the camera there. They flop down to the right, plug in, flop down to the right, plug in, flop down to the right, plug in. Now, considering it's really important to make sure that these don't dry in a cup with a little bit of cup in them, I glued up both halves. This table is 53 inches square, 52 inches square. So I just wanted to make sure that by gluing 3 together and 3 together, I was getting as flat as possible, and then I had a much better chance of getting 2 pieces glued together straight than 6 pieces glued together. So I make 2 units, 3 and 3. Let them dry overnight. Now this is the other unit. That was one big board there. You see how big that one board is there in the middle. And the rest are all kind of skinny. think that was a full 10-inch board, and the rest were all like 7 and 8. And again, this is just one of the 2 units. And you see how I alternate the clamps, one up, one down, one up, one down, because when you tighten those clamps, they tend to pull to the direction where the actual back of the clamp is. So by alternating them, and you see I'm using my straight edge there just to make sure that the boards are square to each other. Now I think it's the next day. Just getting the dust out from underneath them, that's why I clap them down a few times. And just smearing the glue around, take my glove off, and now I plug those 2 halves together. And I'm using these giant bar clamps that I've had for many years. My dad got these, I can't even remember when. I've had them ever since I could remember. I mean, I've had those clamps for 40 years maybe. My dad hardly ever used them, but he got them, and I always had them there for my use growing up. But it's very rare that I do a glue up that's this big. Now just using the scraper card or card scraper, just getting rid of the glue that comes through. And even though I biscuit jointed, they definitely still need a little bit of coaxing to be all on the same level. And using my track saw, cutting it off. And now just a little edit note. This is a similar shot, but if you'll notice it's flipped over. So if for the keen eye I have a right saw and a left saw. I just flipped it over because I did the left and right side from the same camera angle, and it just looked like I made the same cut twice. So from a camera point of view, from an edit point of view, I just flipped one of the takes over. So psychologically you see me cut one side and you think I'm cutting the other side, which I really am. But again, those 2 shots look too similar because I just literally flipped the table 180s to keep it in the same position, which was a stupid idea. I should have just moved the camera. Now this is penetrating epoxy from Total Boat. And we didn't get good film coverage on this. I obviously did paint the end grain. I don't know why I didn't do it in this shot. And then I did palm sand the whole thing next day. And I don't know why I don't have that coverage as well, but that's what took place. And now this is varnish. This is, I think, a satin varnish. And got probably 5 coats of that. I also did paint the bottom of the table too to keep the cupping. And now here I am making the metal bracketing parts. This is going to be the flange in 4 pieces that wraps around the 4x4 inch, half-inch thick column. There it is. Now that's going to be the column that goes up under, is it half inch? I forget. I bought a bunch of these when I did the power hammer. Yeah, that's pretty heavy. And when I did the canoe, I steam bent the stems inside that tube, so it's making a second appearance. And that's why in the previous shot it's got tape all over the end because I had one end cap shut. And this is all just tacking in place. I'm using the MP210 right here just to weld things and tack them in place. And then I take it over to, which at the time was in my garage at a different location. This is the PowerMake 260 flux core shielded, dual shielded. So I'm running flux core with also gas. That's why you see me chipping off the slag, because that's a flux core wire. And now here I ran those a little long, but now you notice when those plates go together in a round robin situation, I get 3 holes on each side, and then I grind that scallop in there just to make it look better. This is going in a kitchen nook at the house in the Bahamas. The slab table that I made also over the summer, and this went to the same location. There's a third pair of tables that I'll probably edit that video at one point in the next couple of days. Now these are the long arms that are going to hold the table up from underneath. 1.5 angle iron, 1.5 by 1.5, and I taper one edge so that if you're under the table, your knees don't hit it. So it goes. Of course I ground that and smooth over those edges, and I also notched them so they fit on each corner of this 4x4. And I'm just tacking things into place there. And I take the time to run a full positive weld on there, but welding on camera is, once you see a spark, you know what's going on. I don't want to show you the full weld. I'm not teaching welding. In fact, am I teaching anything? I guess I'm just teaching you how to make shit generally. And now this is Brandon, who quit on me. He doesn't work for us anymore, but this is from the summertime. I think we worked him too hard. And he's blackening this steel with birchwood blackener. You have Jack's, Birchwood, or Presto. Those are the three brands. And now, just as a demonstration, I wanted to prove to myself so that I could confidently say to the client I tested it. And that flange is wide enough if you're on a good, strong enough floor. 3-inch tap cons, bolted into a cement floor. And I'm trying to see if I could pull it out of the ground, if the leverage was there enough. I mean, if I hit it with a car, it would pop out, but if we're eating eggs and breakfast food, I think we're pretty good. There's our tabletop. Now, from the opening of this video to now, it was probably a month and a half past. Plenty of time for the table to harden and take a polish. The video just doesn't do it justice. I didn't really get any good shots of it. But this is the big test. I wanted to make sure that this was strong enough. And there I am surfing on it. You see a little bit of flexing, but the bolts never got loose. The metal obviously flexed a little bit, but nothing ever came loose. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed this one and you learned something. I mounted it to a pallet and put a box around the top and sent it. I sent it just like that, mounted to a pallet. And I sent it to the Bahamas. It made it okay. I recently saw a picture of it in place and it looks really nice. Thank you for supporting my Patreon. I really appreciate it.